VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you, Mr. Morris, and good day to each and every one of you. Because we know that there's some folk are listening at different times of the day. Some of you are listening already tomorrow, as far as we're concerned. But we just welcome you to Crosstalk because the issues are very pertinent, regardless of what day it is or what time of the day it is. We welcome you today. Well, if you've been close to the news, you've been hearing about the stories that we're going to deal with today. I should say the story. Before we get into this story, I want to share just a few thoughts. Over the years, we have, from a biblical perspective, dealt with issues of Christian lifestyle and what the Bible talks about, our behavior. And then we talk about moral lifestyle, the morality that is espoused by individuals in our culture. Rannon House does a good job on the program called Worldview, and we appreciate that. And a worldview, in many cases, literally announces how people behave, what they espouse is important, and net product is what they consider to be the authority of right and wrong. Now, today, as we are going to be talking about an issue, it is going to involve same-sex attractions. It's called homosexuality. It wasn't too many years ago that everybody was abuzz with efforts by the lesbian community to bring forth influence into a group of young people that are, well, they represent or have represented a strong element of the youth culture in America. It was called the Girl Scouts. And over the years that have transpired since that, what I call, my personal opinion, is the invasion, dealing with the moral standards of that group of young women, we've seen efforts by the homosexual agenda to normalize behavior that they themselves have called queer or abnormal. And what has happened over the years has been this effort to normalize the perception of a lifestyle that is in violation to nature. The Bible tells us that it's an abomination against God, our Creator. And there's some unnatural things that literally are repugnant and have been for decades. There are behaviors that involve same-sex involvement. There are behaviors that go beyond that, such as pedophilia, and that is attacking young people in a sexual manner. There are behaviors such as bestiality, which is repulsive to even mention, but it is immoral behavior with an animal. And in each of these areas, the Lambda rights organizations has been promoting the rights of men with immoral behavior with boys. And on the various kinds of moral behavior or misbehaviors, it's well defined, has been a topic of trying to normalize it and make it part of our culture. The don't ask, don't tell issue in the military, of course, with public pressure mounting, with people who have no moral compass as far as what God says in His Word or what is appropriate and normal worldview, have bought the whole thing hook, line, and sinker and figured, well, if a person wants to be a dope addict, fine. If somebody wants to be a homosexual and behave in that manner, that's their choice. Do your thing. And so we've had parades that have marched up and down our streets at a certain time of the year called Gay Pride. Some years ago in Milwaukee, it was kind of surprising when Chief Areola, then the chief of police in Milwaukee, was involved in helping to plan or provide for the Gay Pride parade. And it was his admonition that the police band, the musicians, would lead the parade for Gay Pride. There were men, even within that band, that literally were repulsed. There were people that were shocked. Well, we're finding more and more the crumbling of these moral values that were once part of the foundation of our country. When the morality of our country deteriorates, when it literally disintegrates, is it any wonder that we have people, even like today, where in San Diego, a madman with a gun is killing and shooting people because he feels that his lifestyle, his opinion is okay. And he, regardless of whether he pays with his life, and apparently he wants to die because he's out there with vengeance killing people. But then you have the molesters who attack unsuspecting people. And then you have those who come along and want to sustain the right to be wrong. Instead of recognizing it as dissent, they call it discrimination. Because if you're discriminating, it must be bad. Well, you know, when you go to the store, or let's put it this way, you go to the restaurant, and you purchase food and find that there is something impure in your food, maybe it's a dead fly or something of that nature. Do you just pick the fly out and just go on and eat the sandwich? Or could it be a roach or something repulsive like this? No, you say, I'm not going to be a part of that. And you ask for a refund and probably never go back to that restaurant again because your perception of what their food might be. Oh, you're discriminating. Absolutely you're discriminating. There used to be commercials that went on the air that said the discriminating taste of whatever it was would seek after purchasing a certain beverage. Now, the term discrimination means simply making a decision based on value. That's all. It's not talking about some wicked thing. Well, there are people who have given the word discrimination a thing because they used it in a racial content. And certainly we agree that racial discrimination and unkindness and that type of thing is not appropriate. But the word to discriminate means to decide and discern between that which is right and that which is wrong. Well, for many, many decades, how long, I had it written down, but I misplaced the paper, of how long an institution known as Boy Scouts of America has been a part of our culture. There have been troops that have been based in a church setting. There have been troops that have been based in a secular setting where businessmen have sponsored a troop. But in every case, the moral standards, the oath, and the scout law were clearly defined. The scout oath, on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the scout law and to help others at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Now that's the scout oath. The scout law is a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Now, it's interesting. In late January, the Boy Scouts of America announced that they were reconsidering, because of public pressure, their decision on whether to lift its ban on gay members and leaders. Now, we saw that already happen in the Girl Scouts. They indicated that this would be taken up by their National Executive Board. And as the board met this week, they've indicated that they will prepare a resolution for the 1,400 voting members of the National Council to consider at their annual meeting in Grapevine, Texas, in May of 2013. If you got a pen or a piece of paper and a piece of paper or something to write with, I'm going to give you a phone number, in fact, a couple phone numbers and email addresses that you can use to share public opinion addressed to the Boy Scout headquarters. In fact, the chief Boy Scout executive, the guy at the top of the Boy Scouts of America. Now, if you don't know how to work email, you can pick up the phone and call them. But here are two numbers and two email addresses where I think the people across America should be heard regarding this effort. We're going to go more into this in just a few moments. But early on, I want you to get the phone number and the point of contact, because you can go to the Boy Scouts headquarters, and that is area code 972-580-2000. That's it. Boy Scouts headquarters, 972-580-2000. If you want to use email, here it is. PR@scouting.org. Just PR@scouting.org. Now, that's the offices. But may I suggest also that you contact Mr. Wayne Brock, who is the chief of Boy Scout of America, the chief executive in charge of this entire work. He has a phone number, and it's area code 972. The number is 580-2004. One more time. That's Wayne Brock, 972-580-2004. Now, he has an email address. It's Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, Brock, B-R-O-C-K, Wayne.Brock @scouting.org. Now, it's also important to contact your local scouting council regarding this issue, because 1,400 voting members of the council will be making their decision coming up in May, which is not that far away, and there needs to be thousands of phone calls of feedback from the people in America regarding the efforts to literally, in my opinion, to pervert the very cause and the very standards of the Boy Scouts of America. And in my opinion, I think America needs to respond. Now, if you'd like to have this vital information, it's important that you contact your local scouting council. To locate the council nearest you, simply go to vcyamerica.org. And on our homepage, you'll find the locator link to find the scouting group that serves your area. Okay? That's vcyamerica.org. And you go there and you'll find the locator link to find the scouting group that serves your area. Now, the Boy Scouts of America, on my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty to God and my country and obey the scout law and help other people at all times to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Now, let me just say also that in not too distant future, just in this program, we're going to take a moment and let you know who the movers and shakers are that are literally trying to change the horses in the middle of the stream. Yeah, it's coming from the inside, and we're going to reveal that to you in just a moment. Stick with us. This is Crosstalk on the VCY America Radio Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, how accurately can scientists reconstruct the past?
Chris, we can't reconstruct the past very well, as anyone who follows court proceedings understands. Even if there are several eyewitnesses to an event, their memories may differ. This is even much more so in the origins debate, because absolutely no one witnessed that. Scientists are locked in the present. All of the data exists in the present. We study the data and try to infer its past without any eyewitness accounts at all. Some of these evidences can be used by both sides. I'm convinced that the bulk of the scientific evidence supports creation and not evolution. To me, the scientific support for the biblical view of history far outweighs the evidence for evolution. Chris, it all started back in Genesis, and I suggest we do too.
Thanks, Dr. Morris. For more information, you can find us on the web at www.icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. And as we're talking about the issue today, which is Boy Scouts of America, and their decision to put off making a decision regarding the acceptance of homosexual scout leaders and those who espouse the lifestyle of the homosexuals. And as they have put this off as for a decision until May, you probably didn't hear anything about this until all of a sudden they made the decision. But you know, very quietly, the pro-gay promoters of agenda that is strongly homosexual, has been supported by atheistic groups and free thinkers, people who have been pushing for this for some time. And as the Boy Scouts of America have made a apparent decision to reverse a century-old policy. Now get this. Here it is. The activists shame the corporate donors that tout diversity and tolerance. These are people, this is from WorldNet Daily. They have an apparent decision to reverse the old policy to bar homosexuals from its ranks. It coincides with a sudden drop in major corporate funding that began last summer, after a gay rights blogger for the Huffington Post published a collaborative report that named the donors and chastised them for violating their own policy of not discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation. And at the same time, get this now, folks, at the same time the two prominent board members took their position, it included an advisor to the Obama White House, who were carrying out a vow to change the policy from within. What very few people recognize is that President Obama is the honorary head scout for Boy Scouts of America. Now, it's interesting that one of the people, we mentioned two of the high-ranking officials within the board of directors of Boy Scouts of America. But it's interesting to find out that one of the people who is extremely involved from the inside, well, I'll read the article that came to us from Tim Wildman at AFR. Dear VCY America, the Boy Scouts of America have just announced it will not make any decision on its membership policy until its annual meeting in May. One of those leading the charge to change the policy to allow homosexuals as leaders is AT&T Chief Executive Randall Stephenson. He is the Chief Executive of AT&T. Now, how many of us are trapped in situations where we have no choice because the utilities that we have within our area may be this telephone company or others? But it seems that Stephenson's mission, according to Tim Wildman, is to destroy the Boy Scouts of America from within. As an executive board member, he is using his corporate influence to bully the BSA into gay assimilation. This is Tim's letter as they go on. It says AT&T has already cut funding to Boy Scouts of America, a direct personal conflict of interest for Stephenson. It's reasonable to expect members of the Boy Scouts of America board to lead in a way that exemplifies the very basic values that made the Boy Scouts of America successful. But Stephenson has shown that he doesn't. And it's time for Stephenson, according to Tim Wildman, to leave the Boy Scouts of America board. Now, when we see high-ranking, high-visible individuals like Mr. Randall Stephenson, the chief executive officer of AT&T, the largest communication system in the United States, and realize that he could be, to persuade the board to accept this, has reduced, according to this article, has reduced the donations that have come from AT&T, perhaps to pressure them to make a decision of acceptance of this policy. Now, I don't know what you think, But I've always respected the Boy Scouts of America. When they come to my house and they want to sell Christmas wreaths or cookies or whatever they want to do, we've always tried to be helpful. And the Boy Scouts of America have made a statement in response. For 103 years, the Boy Scouts of America has been part of the fabric of this nation, providing its youth program of character development and values-based leadership training. In the past 2 weeks, Scouting has received an outpouring of feedback from the American public. It reinforces how deeply people care about Scouting and how passionate they are about the organization. After careful consideration and extensive dialogue with the Scouting family, along with comments from those outside the organization, the volunteer officers of the Boy Scouts of America National Executive Board concluded that due to the complexity of this issue, the organization needs time for a more deliberate review of its membership policy. To that end, the National Executive Board directed its committees to further engage representatives of Scouting's membership and listen to their perspectives and concerns. This will assist the officers' work on a resolution on membership standards. The approximately 1,400 voting members of the National Council will take action on the resolution at the National Annual Meeting in May 2013. Now, folks, what this says to me is that people all across the United States, and we realize that people are listening today all across the United States, people listening in various states. We know that there are people also listening outside of this country who are listening and aware of what's going on. But may I say that public opinion and urging from the public, and I think if there's any group that needs to hear the voice of America, and I say that carefully, people who are concerned about this invasion, and as I see it, an invasion of moral change, the acceptance of an abnormal lifestyle as being legitimate and approvable. A lifestyle that, according to scientists, said if it prevails, literally could move toward the annihilation of the human race on the planet. Because abnormal behavior, abnormal sexual relationships, anyone that's taken Biology 101 knows that without a proper relationship and a familial relationship, that the population of our country would demise to nothing. Because with one gender having relationships with the same gender, there's absolutely no biological reproduction. But what you're finding today is those who have accepted a synthetic relationship, or that they have decided that through artificial insemination or sperm banks or all kinds of things that are going on, simply to go through the motions of achieving population. But may I say that the question still remains, it stands here before us as a country, and now as the Boy Scouts of America are being bombarded from every quarter. I have seen literature, stacks of it, that has come along where people within this mindset have been bombarding. Their voice is loud and very impressive. And if there's ever a time when the people of America need to pick up the phone or take their emails and direct them to Boy Scouts of America, it's now. So I'm going to give you, once more, the point of contact where you can contact the Boy Scouts of America. And if you would write these down and call today, call tomorrow, call the next day, as often as you can, and let them know where you stand, where America stands on this issue. Now, you can go to the Boy Scouts headquarters, and here's the phone number, 972-580-2000. 972-580-2000. Their email address is pr@scouting.org. In addition to that, Wayne Brock, who is the Chief Boy Scouts Executive, his phone number is 972, area code, 580-2004. That's 972-580-2004. That's Wayne Brock, and here's his email address, Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, .Brock, B-R-O-C-K, at scouting.org. If you want to go and find out the local council nearest you, because these are the groups that are going to be voting as well. The local council nearest you, simply go to vcyamerica.org, and on our homepage you'll find the locator link to find the scouting group that serves your area, wherever you are. Now remember this, the scouting oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the scout law and to help others at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And the scout law, a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Open the phone lines. That's what it is right now. Our telephone number, 800-733-9829. What do you think? I hope you take time to call them today and tomorrow and the next day. Put the number on your fridge. And until May, keep calling. Call from everywhere. And keep calling every week. Keep calling until May comes around. And hopefully there may be a report that will be encouraging. Our telephone number, 800-733-9829. Your opinion on this, we'll be happy to take your call. 800, the lines are jammed, by the way, at this moment. But if you would, stand by, and as soon as we terminate one call, use your auto dialer to try and get in. Again, we're asking our often callers, or the more frequent callers, to limit your calls to once a week, because we have hundreds of people that are trying to get through and many times can't because the lines are jammed. So in courtesy to many of our callers in state, out of state, and out of the country, just once a week with your comments will be grateful, because we have thousands of people listening. We have information aware of that. So again, not meaning to offend, but once a week will be appropriate, and share your views as you can. But let's open the doors for others to be involved as well. Right now we're going to go to Tony, who's in Black River Falls, Wisconsin. And Tony, your thoughts today.
Hi, how you doing?
Fine, sir. What are your thoughts?
Well, being a former Boy Scout and being the son of an Eagle Scout who was also a member of the Order of the Arrow, I think it is absolutely appalling that they would even consider to change their rules. Being that, everything I've been through in the Scouts and everything I've learned, I think they really need to look at the moral compass and figure out where they're going. But it's absolutely appalling to hear this.
Well, you said it, Tony, and the moral compass, there are some people who don't even have a compass. They just go by their glands or by their feelings.
Yep, and that's disturbing and in itself. But being a former Boy Scout, it's not something they should allow nor even consider to allow.
Can you imagine the defection and departure from many people in the scouting organization, even some of the support that has come through benevolent sources that may be defecting when this type of thing comes around?
Well, I think what they do is they need to look at some of these Christian organizations and see if they can get some help from places like Hobby Lobby and things like that, rather than going to these companies who are obviously secular and have no interest in keeping the...
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. We're going to take a break and be right back. The lines are jamming here, and appreciate Tony's call.
From Dave Cristiano Films come 2 DVDs which emphasize a high standard of purity. Pamela's Prayer tells the story of Pamela Buckland. All of her friends were dating, but Pamela was not. It seemed unfair that her father insisted on a high standard of purity. That is, it seemed unfair until the day she was married. Due to response to Pamela's Prayer, the second DVD, One Lucky Lady, was made. It's a touching drama that presents a perspective on purity before marriage that is insightful and heartfelt. Through the end of February, VCY America is making available this Purity Pack of DVDs. Any 2 copies are available for a donation of $15. Or if you want multiples to share with others, any 4 copies are available for a donation of $20. Or a combination of 12 DVDs is available for a donation of $42 to VCY America. To obtain your copies, call 1-800-729-9829 and specify how many of each DVD you wish to order. That's 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where the phone lines are literally jamming here all across the country. And right now we're going to go to the North Country in Virginia, Minnesota, and talk with Ward. And let's see. There we go. Push the right button there. Ward, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just think that the board members should be, everyone should cry for the removal for even suggesting it. I mean, it's a contradiction to the Boy Scout motto. I mean, that in and of itself should be enough to remove them, and that should be the cry, and maybe that'll get a message that way. That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your comments. You betcha. Let's go to Greenfield, Wisconsin, and talk with Harold. Our telephone number, 800-733-9829. Toll-free from anywhere on the planet. Hi, Harold. How are you?
Hello, Brother Vic.
Yes, sir.
Last week, when Jim had basically the same program on last week, the numbers that were given out were pretty much the same as what you gave out this a few minutes ago. At that time, I called in, and they reverted all those numbers, even from the local level. They reverted them to the Boy Scouts of America homepage to make contact about this subject, and down at the very bottom of the page under Contact Us was the only way that you could send your thoughts and suggestions in. I'm wondering if that has changed now.
Well, I'd suggest you try it. And I don't care if you have to call every day for a week, but they need to hear from American people concerned. And,
absolutely. I totally agree. And
everybody is not computer conversant, and sometimes, but the telephone number there, and if need be, we will update on our webpage if you want to come to our webpage, vcyamerica.org. And I'm going to ask Gordy, our supervisor up there, to double check and see if there's an additional point of contact. The other thing that we put on the page now, if you go to vcyamerica.org, you're going to find the link to the local. And this is important, that if you, even calling the national headquarters is nice, but what you need to do is be calling the local area, because there's 1,400 groups that are going to be voting on this. And
I did call the local area last week also.
Good. Well,
they reverted me to the national office down in Texas.
Well, I would suggest you continue to call, and whatever it takes, get the word out, and we'll double-check that as well. Appreciate that, Harold. Got to move along very quickly. Hermiston, Oregon, and Sue, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm going to make it quick, Pastor Vic. You need on your I'm suggesting this. You need on your program some doctors explaining the kind of surgeries they've had to do to little boys.
Well, right today we're talking about a lifestyle, and we can get into the nitty-gritty things regarding the hazards of this lifestyle. But right now, what we're talking about is a response from the general public dealing with the hazards and the pain and the anguish that comes from people who are caught up in something that's being normalized by these people, Sue. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.
Hermiston, Oregon. We move right along to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Got some open lines here quickly. 800-733-9829. And Kathy.
Hi, Vic. I'm calling from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. My husband actually is a former homosexual. Mm-hmm. We've been married now for 23 years, and we run a ministry up in the Fox Valley area for people who are dealing with this issue in their own lives. My husband himself was molested as a child, so he kind of knows firsthand about all these things. And so we're very much, of course, in favor of the healing that's possible through Jesus Christ. It's not just a white-knuckle kind of thing.
Right.
Christ can actually heal and restore homosexuals, and they're not born that way.
Amen.
Yes. And the other thing I wanted to mention is with this thing with the Boy Scouts. You know, obviously we're concerned with that, and we've contacted the Boy Scouts and expressed our opinions. But the other thing I'm thinking is that maybe we need to put a little bit of muscle behind our requests when we call in to the Boy Scouts and pledge our support financially to them. Mm-hmm. Because if they're losing all these corporate donors, the money's got to come from somewhere. And if all of us who are concerned about this issue would pledge even $10 a month, whatever the Lord lays on our heart to do, they could make up the deficit and maybe not be bullied so much by these corporations.
Well, one of the things that's amazing is that the company AT&T, who has reduced its giving, its financial support, gives the image that the support is dwindling, so therefore it is a motivation to accept the more liberal approach. Right. But the guy who appears to be orchestrating this reduction is the man who's promoting it. Mm-hmm. He's actually promoting the fact of changing the rules and the standards of the Boy Scouts. And so what you do, you can modulate this, you can cut the support, and then once they become more liberal, then you increase the donations. So it's giving a false element. If you start cutting the support until you make the change, you can see the motivation there, which gives a false indication. But your words are well taken, Kathy, and I really appreciate that. We're going to go to Madison right now, Madison, Wisconsin. Jerry.
Yeah, Vic, this thing is real simple. It's all about MONEY. Mm-hmm. UPS, they want to cut their contributions, AT&T and probably others. And if we, I tried calling both those numbers, and the first number, the 2000 number, the guy told me, he says, please do not call this line. The only way you can make a comment is through email on their website or something, which I don't have a computer. And I called the other number, the 2004 number, and it just rings and rings and rings for about a minute, and then it disconnects. So nobody is answering either one of those lines.
The first line you said he did answer, correct?
He did answer, and I gave him my comment about what I felt about this, and that they need to stop that. And I said, "Can you get this? Can you pass my comments on?" And he said, "No." He said, "You got to go through the email. I will not." He says, "Do not call this line."
Well, they've already been smoked out, I think, regarding all the phone calls. But may I say this? Yeah. Go to our website, vcyamerica.org, and get the local council nearest you, and go to them and let them know these are local groups, local people. And you see, if these are the people that are going to be voting. There's going to be 1,400 of them voting, and these 1,400 voting members representing each of these chapters need to hear from you, even if the main office can't handle the load, and that's probably why, because their phone lines are just literally being smoked.
Yeah. Vic, I want to say one more other thing quick. There is a God that is in control. And if money is the issue, then they ought to realize that you stand for the truth, you do the right thing, and God will allow other contributors to contribute. Mm-hmm. The money will not dry up. It'll come from another source. God will allow it if they honor God.
Well said, Jerry. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Bye. Once again, if the chief executive of AT&T, he's the top dog, is on the board, one of the high-profile members of the board of Boy Scouts of America, now this would indicate that he's a strong supporter. But because there is non-acceptance of the gay lifestyle, he influences his corporation to reduce their donations, probably using, and this is assumed, using the reason of discriminatory policies. But once those policies are changed, he can throttle the donations and bring them up again. This is what some people may call, and in my opinion, is called an inside job. Well, let's move along here. And again, Jerry, thank you so much from Madison. We're going to go to John in Ohio. And John, your thoughts. Hello, John.
Yes, sir. I really want to draw the attention to all the Christians in the United States about the idea that this is actually war. God says it's going to come about, and Satan is going to do everything in his power to turn us around to the way we don't want to be. And we have to really take up arms against him. We have to show ourselves. We have to make it known what the word is. We have to go in our communities and pass these out and show people and teach people and help them understand what the Lord wants us to do. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of our problem. A lot of the people in our very own community don't understand what is to be. So they just go ahead with whatever the big media says. So,
and one of the things, John, is that this very quietly, nobody was headlining the pressure coming from the homosexual agenda. I mean, only the conservative news sources were able to disclose it, but the drive-by media weren't covering that at all until now the issue becomes nationwide, and then the issue of the pressure from the homosexual agencies now has become major. Then it comes to the surface and they label it discrimination.
Yeah, and that's the same thing I think what I'm saying about us is we are on the standby until an issue comes. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what the Lord doesn't want us to do. We should be on every corner at every point in time that we can, even in the grocery stores, talking to people next to us. Wear a cross. Show people that you're a Christian. Speak about your church. Talk about your fellow people that are in your church with you. This lets them know who you are and what you're about and what the Lord wants them to know, so you can pass this on. They see this good person, they understand that they're a Christian.
John, thank you. From Ohio, appreciate your comments. Annette in Pensacola, Florida, you're on the air.
Yes. I just wanted to say, this is making a very huge impact on my family. My 13-year-old son, I had to sit down and explain to him. He's been in Scouts since he was a tiger, and he, thank the Lord, is totally at peace with the decision that if they decide this, even in May, that him and his brother are going to be out of Scout. And I have already written my letter to the national. He's going to write a letter to national. His father's going to write a letter to national. We've passed the word to every Christian person that we know, so that they can be on their knees in prayer about this.
Amen. Annette, let me ask this question: have you contacted your local Scout troops?
Yes, we've been back and forth in touch with them.
But just remember, they are going to be part of this 1,400 that are voting.
Yes.
So if you would, again, and if you need the points of contact, just go to vcyamerica.org and click on the link, and you can find out wherever you are.
Yeah, because I'm actually the committee chair for my youngest son's PAC.
Oh, wow.
So I have full contact with the council in our local area.
Well, we need to pray. And Annette, thank you for sounding your heart from Pensacola today.
Thank you.
God bless you. And moving along to Pat in South Dakota. Pat, you're on the air.
Okay. Hello, Vic?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Say, I was just wondering, have you ever heard of the book by Scott Lively called The Pink Swastika?
Yes, we've promoted it for several years.
Okay, I guess I might be a little bit new to your program, but it is certainly an eye-opening book, and there's a huge parallel between Nazi Germany back in the 20s and in the rise of Adolf Hitler through the 30s and the 40s to where this country is going to right now.
Let me share this with you also, Pat, that Scott Lively was out in, I think it was San Francisco, and was scheduled to speak at a church, and the church was literally surrounded by homosexuals that were throwing things at the church, threatening. In fact, if I recall correctly, he had to be taken out of the church with the police protecting him because of the violent behavior, because he had written that. So it's a terrifying thing. I want to thank you for calling from South Dakota, Pat. God bless you.
Thank you.
Got to move along. The break is on us, and we'll be right back.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brennan House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Recently, megachurch pastor and seeker-sensitive pastor Perry Noble blogged on his website the following, quote, "I know so many people who really don't have a problem with Jesus, but they have a major problem with the church. And so because of that, they simply refuse to receive the product, Jesus, because of who or what is associated with him." My friends, this is the problem with the seeker-sensitive church movement. Jesus is not a product that we're trying to sell to the world. And many people that have a problem with the church, the problem is that they don't like the biblical gospel that's being preached. They want the watered-down milquetoast of the seeker-sensitive church. In fact, my friends, Jesus is not a product that should be marketed with man-centered marketing. That is a false gospel and a false Jesus. We need to preach the biblical gospel.
And welcome to Crosstalk, where we continue with the ongoing story that we've begun with today. May I say this, and some of you are frustrated when you call the main headquarters and have said that they're directing you elsewhere. It could well be an overload of handling calls. Do not, apparently, if you call Mr. Brock, who is the Chief Boy Scouts Executive, his number, which we gave you, was 972-580-2004. But those who have called say it rings and rings and rings. Well, we can understand that probably it's an overload on their switchboard. However, we find that they are answering the headquarters phone number, that is 972-580-2000. And I would suggest that they continue, and hopefully they're keeping track of how many calls are coming in, because people care. People care about the history and the wonderful work of the Boy Scouts of America, the moral high ground in which they have operated. And now we see the efforts to literally pervert the morals compass of the Boy Scouts into an area that is accepting of deviant lifestyle. And the question, they call it discrimination, perhaps is just making a common sense understanding of what's morally right and wrong. Well, let that be determined as the Boy Scouts are wrestling with it. But I'm going to give you that number again, and I'd say keep calling and let them know if the phone rings day or night. Let them know that America cares. Even if they say we're not going to take your note, I'll guarantee you they're counting the number of calls. Boy Scouts headquarters, 972-580-2000. But now remember what we said earlier in the program. And the importance is to call your local troops, your local organization, because they are going to be one of the 1,400 groups that will be making the decision, will be casting their vote. And so I can understand why the national office would defer to do this, because at this point in time, the wrath of concerned people all across the country could determine the demise of Boy Scouts of America. And so as they spread this out to the people and the moral values and the worldviews that are in your community, your local troops need to hear from you. And so may I suggest that you go to vcyamerica.org, and there on that page you'll find a link, the locator link, to find the scouting group that serves your area. vcyamerica.org. And there on there, you'll click on the link and you've got it. Okay, the lines are jamming here, and let me move right along here to Vincent in Port Charlotte, Florida. And Vincent, you're on the air.
Yes, I would like to just make this comment that the devil, as people make the decision whether they're going to call or not, I'm personally going to call. But as the Boy Scouts make the decision whether they're going to allow homosexuals to be scoutmasters or not, we have to understand that Satan will work through the homosexual men and women to do things in front of the kids that will be despicable. They will live their lifestyle out in front of the kids, setting a horrible example. And my next comment is, I don't necessarily believe that this is all about money, because the homosexual, the Boy Scouts understand if they do this, they will lose a great amount of their young men, and that so it's just about deviant behavior. Lord bless you, and I'll listen and see what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate the call. Yes, you're absolutely right. If this decision is made, there is going to be a mass exodus of Boy Scout troops that are affiliated with churches, at least conservative or Bible-preaching churches. May I say that liberal churches may say, well, we have to be inclusive, and end up accepting this lifestyle. But may I suggest, this is not hate speech, folks. We're not hating people who may be in a lifestyle that is controversial or one that appears to be unnatural. We're talking about an issue of what is right and what is wrong, the moral compass of the moral foundation of the belief system of our young people today. Now, let me just say this, folks. As there is, and there have been many churches that have said, look, we can no longer support scout groups that are not honoring God. There have been some scout groups that have been out in the periphery. And there have been groups that have called their scout groups Royal Rangers or some other name and had a scouting group within the church structure that was not a part of Boy Scouts. And I predict that if this pervades, there are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of scouting groups that will emerge with different names, run in different environments here. So that's my thought here. Quickly, the time is going by. Pensacola, Florida, and we're talking with Doug. Doug, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Listen to your deal. I'm a parent of a scout, and I'm also a scout leader. I live here in Pensacola. Probably 90% of our churches, the scout troops are sponsored through the churches. And we've all been talking, and there's pretty much an uproar, and the pastors are telling us that they have problems with wanting to do, like you're saying, sponsor it. Mm-hmm. But one of our concerns is if the kids go out, if you have a homosexual leader and he promotes his lifestyle or puts it in a positive manner, we're kind of concerned that it might bring other homosexual kids in that will try to act on that with these kids when they're out there camping for a few days or a week. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I've got to say.
You're absolutely right, Doug. And what it does, it normalizes. If the man portrays himself as being an upstanding scout leader and doesn't manifest certain things as he is there, there'll be an affinity tied in. And why do you worry about this issue of sexual orientation? And before you know, we're already facing this thing in public schools where they're talking about diversity. Now you're going to have it in the scout groups.
Yes, sir. I'm going tomorrow. Me and another leader, we're going with some of the kids to an Indian thing for scouting at a camp. We're going to be there with them by ourselves. If I was a homosexual leader, I'd have these kids all to myself, be telling them pretty much. I could say things that I wouldn't say in front of their parents.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate your call from Pensacola. We are out of time. I want to thank you for joining us. And, folks, you got the number. You can go to our link, find out who the Scout organization is in your location, and I hope you'll let your voice be heard. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.